Hi, everyone. This is Ron Guth, and this is the Wednesday night live stream where you can pick my brain on any questions you have related to numismatics, coin collecting, specific coins, anything in my brain that I might think about what's going on in the coin market. So let's see. Do we have anybody on here yet? Nobody's on here yet, but that's okay. What I want to talk to you about tonight is about one of the big questions I get quite frequently. Oh my gosh, there goes my light. Um, a question I get asked frequently is, what is the best way to store your coins? And that's a very important question because when a coin is struck, and it comes off the dies, it's essentially perfect. It may not be perfect in the technical sense, but it is as pristine as it will ever be. And theoretically, over time, the coin will only get worse. It will only degrade. It'll conduct. It'll come in contact with other coins. It may be stored improperly, and it may be exposed to elements in the air that cause it to tone or tarnish or corrode. Moisture in the air is really bad for coins, especially copper coins. So it may be that if we don't store a coin properly, over time, it will eventually be destroyed. And a perfect example of that is, let's say, a coin that came out of a shipwreck or a coin that has been found in the ground. And these are coins that are, of course, exposed to moisture, physical contact with dirt and sand, that sort of thing. And so when you look at these things, especially, let's say it's a silver coin, the copper that's alloyed with the silver will eventually degrade. And what that does is it causes a pitting on the surface of the coin. And when you pull up a coin from the ground or out of the ocean, the silver coins have what NGC calls the shipwreck effect. And the coins that come out of the ground will just be corroded and pitted. And it's not a good thing, but that's an extreme situation. What I'm talking about is storing a coin in some sort of holder so that over time, all these bad effects don't occur and the coin is preserved so that the next person down the road after we're gone can have a chance to own a nice coin. Someone asked me last week about dipping coins, cleaning coins, and that sort of thing. And I said that any early American coin, if it is a silver coin and it's white, it most likely has been dipped. And what that means is that it had started to tone. It may have had some surface dirt on it or something, but the owner of it deliberately cleaned the coin to make it look better. And that's what we call conservation. And that's actually, when it's professionally done, is a good thing. When you store a coin, the key thing you want to do is make sure it's in a dry, moisture-free place. Now, you can't always escape the moisture, but one of the best ways to do that is with a desiccant, and that is a drying agent that actually pulls the moisture out of the air and keeps it away from the coin. So let's say you're putting your coins in a safe deposit box. The best thing to do is to have some little desiccant packs in the box so that it can help protect your coins. If you are in a house, if you live in a humid area or a salty sea air area, you're going to have problems no matter what. So you may want to consider putting your coins somewhere where they're going to be safe. You could, in theory, put them in like an ammo box and just make sure it's sealed and doesn't let any air in. Stick a desiccant pack in there with those, and they should be fine. In terms of physical storage, a long time ago, I was buying world silver coins. I love them because they're beautiful. You could buy them for close to their melt value. And I would put them in 2x2 little packs like this. This is a 2x2 holder. Okay, the coin slips on one side, and then you can write a description on the other side. Let's see if we can get that closer. But anyway, the key here is I put all these silver coins in these old vinyl flips. And I didn't realize it, but when I went to my safe deposit box a couple months later, I'm looking at my coins and I'm going, what happened to them? They developed this green film. And that was caused by the plasticizer that used to be used in, and still is used in, vinyl flips. What that means is to make vinyl, you take a hard plastic and you mix it with a plasticizer, and that's what creates a soft, supple vinyl. But the problem with that is that over time, that plasticizer, which is called polyvinyl chloride (PVC), it leaches out and begins to attack your coins. So you have to be very careful to not store coins long term in those. They're good for short term, but I would never consider storing them in their long term. Now, over time, what the evolution of the holder is that they quit using the plasticizer or so much of it, so that the plastic now, or the holder is now a little bit harder. You can hear me flicking it. And they no longer have the plasticizer in them, and so it's a much safer way to store your coins. The problem with the non-plasticized or non-vinyl holders is that they begin to become brittle over time. So if you rub this hinge this way enough times, it's going to snap off. So you're going to be replacing your holders fairly frequently. Another way to store coins is, of course, if you're collecting certified coins, it's in a certified encapsulation, what we call slabs. And these are not completely airtight or watertight, but they are close. And they're a very good way to protect your coin. They'll certainly keep it from being damaged by another coin, or if you just drop something on them, they should be fine. These are great. They're kind of bulky. That's one of the big issues with these. You can only store a certain number in a safe deposit box, but that is the safest way to protect your coins at this time. I would say that in terms of consumer protection, that's what I really like about slabs. A lot of people say, "Oh, I like to hold my coin. I like to feel my coin. I like to touch my coin," but anytime you do that, you risk dropping it, you risk damaging it, and the salts and oils in your skin can actually get onto the surface of the coin and damage it. And how many of us have seen a coin that has a fingerprint on it, or a copper coin that has small, what we call carbon spots? That's usually from droplets of saliva that are hitting the coin when you are speaking next to it. So one of the things in terms of coin etiquette that we often talk about is don't ever talk, or try to minimize your talking when a coin is raw and you're holding it in your hand, or at least make sure you move it away so that your spittle will not land on the coin. And that's especially true when you're handling someone else's coin. You definitely don't want to damage someone else's coin long term. So encapsulation, the PVC holder is not so good. The what we call this, the vinyls, we don't want that. So we have another one that I really like for long-term storage, and I've used this for my inventory for probably 40 years now. They've been around a long, long time. These are the 2x2 cardboard holders, and what they are is basically a piece of cardboard with a film backing. And what you do is you fold these over, and then you can put a coin into it, and you staple it. And this is what the final product looks like. You can see the 4 staples there, and the film protects the coin. There are a couple things you have to be concerned about with these. And one is that you want to make sure that you crimp the staples. One of the worst things you can do is leave the staples uncrimped. And it's especially true when you have coins of different sizes. Let's say you had a small penny or a dime in a holder with staples. Staples would be around here. And if you put that coin next to this one here, it could theoretically rub against it and damage the coin. or it may tear the film. And a lot of times when you tear the film on these, especially if it's a silver coin, all of a sudden it's exposed to the air, and you might pull the coin out 6 months or a year from now, and there's a toning spot beginning to form on the coin. So those are the two big things to be concerned about that. The nice thing about these holders is you can add your descriptive text to the holder. My autofocus is not that good, but you can write as much as you want. You have lots of real estate in which to describe the coin. So in terms of protecting your coin long term, especially like I said, I use it for inventory purposes. This has been a tried and true method that has worked for me for, as I said, decades. So that's a good way to do it. I would try to stay away from coin albums. Obviously, the old Whitman Blue album, that's great for when you're putting together circulated sets of coins, say a Lincoln penny. But when it's a high grade coin, you have to be careful because, first of all, you have to find a way to push it into the album. And a lot of times that's done with your fingers. You should wear gloves if you do that. And then, even then, the coin itself, the front of the coin, is exposed to potential damage from either other coins falling out of their holes onto it or from rubbing against the holder itself when it's closed, the folder itself when it's closed. If you use the Dansko albums, these are the ones that have the holes pre-drilled and pre-sized, and they have a sheet of vinyl, non-vinyl plastic that slides over the coins. And usually it's say 3 to 5 coins in a row. The danger with that is if there's any abrasive whatsoever, I'm talking about the tiniest grain of sand or dirt, you can potentially slide that across the surface of the coin and put little hairlines. And I've seen plenty of coins that you look at it and you immediately say, that came out of a Dansko album. So I would recommend not using those with super high grade coins. Super high grade coins, keep them encapsulated. And I'm not being sponsored by the grading services here. I don't get any kind of commission from them. But this is the best way to keep high grade certified coins protected. And again, the consumer protection aspect of the slab is that the grade is the grade. It cannot change unless you damage the coin or the coin is somehow damaged. And even then, there's a guarantee that PCGS or NGC will honor that the grade of the coin. The other thing is, as I've mentioned before, authenticity. When you buy a coin in a slab, assuming it's not a counterfeit slab, you are guaranteed authenticity by the grading company. So that's 2 levels of protection that I really, really like. If you're collecting high-grade coins, that's really the way to go. Now, my next topic is, and this is a weird one. Something happened to my channel in the last week or two. I was getting maybe 150 to 200 views a day, which for my channel is good. It's a small growing channel. I have 300 and some subscribers. And then literally overnight, all of a sudden, the views just dropped off the map. I mean, it went from literally 150 views down to 3. I mean, I checked my analytics this morning, and I had 3 views. I'm going, what the heck is going on? And that's 3 views for 48 hours, not 24 hours. So something is going on. I haven't quite found out what it is. But if I can ask you a favor, click on a couple of the videos and watch them. If you can, watch them all the way through and see if we can't get that viewership up. And I'm not sure whether YouTube's algorithm for some reason kicked me out, but it's the only time I've ever seen this happen. It does not happen on my Wow History channel, which is still active. There's just something going on that killed the channel, and I'm not sure what it is. There was no copyright violations, nothing. It's inexplicable. So if you can, and if you haven't subscribed yet, please subscribe, hit the like button, the notification bell. Please do whatever you can to help me get this channel back up again. And I mean, I don't necessarily mean to go through the roof or go viral, but I mean, what happened is like, I just can't figure it out. The other thing that I'd like to do tonight, we don't have any, we don't have anybody on here yet. I'd like to do a little show and tell. Okay, these are coins that I think are weird and unusual, and I really like them. Recently, I gave a talk to one of the local coin clubs about porcelain coins, and these are coins that were made in Germany in the early 1920s during the period of hyperinflation after World War I. Essentially, what happened was all the good money went out of circulation, was pulled out, all the gold and silver was pulled out of circulation, and even the crummy coins, the brass and the copper, they were all pulled out of circulation, and there was nothing left for the people to use to conduct business. It would be like today, your credit card didn't work, you didn't have any cash, you didn't have any coins in circulation. How would you go to the store and buy a loaf of bread? Well, a bunch of this emergency money evolved, just, necessity being the mother of invention. They came up with these alternative methods for money. One of them was scrip or paper chits or low value paper money, and these are called note geld. Note geld does not mean not Geld or not money. Note in German means emergency. So note geld is emergency money that was created to help facilitate commerce. You have the paper note geld, and actually the paper note geld was made of a number of different fabrics or elements. One was primarily paper. Another was linen. If you go to the state of Bielefeld, Germany, a lot of their paper money was made out of leather or linen or cotton. It was just basically paper money that was printed onto linen. It's the same designs as the paper money, but it was just made on a different fabric. They're also made on wood and just a variety of different elements. One of the other things that was used to create emergency money, and they made a whole bunch of different ones. This was iron and zinc. And what the mints would do, and I don't know whether they must have been private mints, they would go to a town and say, here we are in San Diego, and they go to the city leaders and go, you need money to run your city, and we can strike these coins for you, and we'll put the name of the city on them and give them a low denomination, say like 10 cents, 20, not 20 cents, 50 cents, something below $1, 1 cent even. And we'll strike these for you. You can buy them for us for just a small fraction over there, what it costs us to make them. And then you can distribute that to the public and they can use it as money and they'll be excited because it has the name of their town on it. And it would be really cool. So they did that not only with the paper money, but also with the metal note geld. And the metal note geld, as I said, usually comes in zinc or iron, which doesn't really respond well to the elements. I mentioned earlier about proper coin storage. It's hard to find true uncirculated zinc or iron note geld because it's had, almost 100 years. Well, it has had 100 years to react with the environment around it. So it's hard to find nice ones of that. Another thing that they did, and this is peculiar to Germany, was they started to make money out of porcelain. The Meissen porcelain factory, this is a fairly good sized piece. You can see the relief on there. If I get into focus. This is a large one. These were made by the Meissen porcelain factory in what later became East Germany after World War II. The Meissen porcelain factory is very famous. They produce fine porcelain items, flatware, decorative ware, teapots, anything. They make fine porcelain. And the reason it's in Meissen is because when porcelain first came to Europe, it came from the Chinese. And they had developed a way of making really beautiful translucent porcelain the things that we call China today. The reason it's called China is it came from China. Well, when the first pieces of China started arriving in Europe, they just went crazy. They said, "Oh, this is incredibly beautiful. Let's try to copy it." It's kind of the opposite of what's going on right now, where China is copying everything else. At this time, Europe wanted to copy the Chinese method for creating porcelain. Well, they had a hard time doing it. They couldn't figure it out. It was, for some reason, impossible. And there was a leader back then, I can't remember his name, but he had a young man working for him almost as an indentured servant. His name was Johann Butger. And what he did was he was tasked actually initially with turning base metals into gold. In other words, becoming the alchemist, turning base metals into gold. Well, he couldn't figure out how to do that either. No one's figured out how to do that yet. But he started playing around with porcelain, and he discovered that a way to make porcelain out of the clay and materials that were surrounding the city there in Meissen. And he was able to come up with a way to make a porcelain like this here that could withstand wear and abrasion and could be formed into a variety of different objects similar to the Chinese china. So that made him instantly rich, and his benefactor instantly rich. And they created the porcelain factory at Meissen. And so for many, many years, many decades, they created this fine porcelain ware, which became famous around the world. For the most part, you can tell if it's from Meissen because it has what we call a crossed swords hallmark. And I'm not sure if you can see it at the bottom of this coin here. It's not going to focus there, but you can go online and just look up Meissen hallmark. And it is two swords that are crossed. And that you'll see on every piece of Meissen porcelainware, and also on these porcelain coins that were made in Meissen. The Meissen factory did the same thing that the Notgeld, the metal Notgeld manufacturers did. They went to the cities and said, "Hey, we can make you porcelain coins with your name on it, any design you want. You can choose the design, you can design the coin, and we'll make them for you." And they did. A small premium over the manufacturing costs, and they made thousands and thousands of these porcelain coins. If you go to the standard reference on these things, they're literally over almost 2,000 of these different porcelain coins that were manufactured. So they're very plentiful for the most part. And the other nice thing about them is once the Meissen manufactory learned that collectors would pay a premium for odd and unusual items, they started making them out of white porcelain. They started making them out of green porcelain, blue porcelain. There's a variety of different colors in which these things were made. Then they also started to decorate them. You'll see a lot of these here where they took some of the coins and they painted it, and they painted the edge, they painted some of the devices on the inside, and they turned them into these really beautiful works of art. It's possible to try to collect as many different ones as you can, but it's impossible to get them all. I know of no one that's ever been able to do that, and I doubt seriously if anyone can. I mean, there are so many iterations and new ones are being discovered every day that it would be impossible to get them all. But that's one of the unusual pieces I like to collect. I have a nice inventory of these things. Another interesting coin that I have here, and again, this goes to what materials were used to make coins. This is from 1925, and this is a coin that was made, it's really not a coin, it was made for the city of Frankfurt. And this was made in 1925. I'm sorry, this is not 1925. This is a much more modern piece, but it's made out of like a red wax, a red beeswax. Really unusual. Obviously, this is something that you want to store properly because if you live in a very warm environment, if it gets too warm, it could start to melt. This one's actually in pretty good condition. Let me see if I can find a date on this thing. I would say this was probably, there is no date on it, but it was probably made in the 1980s. What other kind of unusual coins do I have here? Here's one. This is a, let me get the right coin. I hope some of you show up here. That would sure be nice to say hello to you. This is a coin. That's not the original. Here we go. Okay. Years ago, when the Americans were, first settling the West and that sort of thing, in fact, actually, when they were settling the East, the Eastern colonies, they made alliances with the Native American Indians. And the way they would do that was, where they would bring trading goods for them, but they would also bring them what we call Indian peace medals. And these are medals that were given to the chiefs and the top men of the tribe as gifts to honor them with the blessings of the so-called Great Father, which at the time would have been the President of the United States. And this started in America with the British colonies. The king would have peace medals made, and those were distributed to the Indians. And when America formed and we had our own country, it started with George Washington and went all the way through to the late 1800s, where the presidents would have medals struck, usually with their face on the front, and they would give them to the chieftains of the tribe. And it was a great program. The chiefs loved it. And you can actually see photographs of Native American Indians with wearing these Indian peace medals on a ribbon or a chain. In the early 1900s, a fellow named Elder, who I think is related somehow to the famous coin dealer Thomas Elder, might have been a brother or something. Well, in 1911, he made some privately struck medals for the Osage Indian tribe. And this is one of them. This is one of the originals. Let's see if we can get a little shot of that. That's the Osage chief on the front. This is made out of aluminum. It has the usual clasped hands on the back with the peace pipe above and a tomahawk. And these are made for distribution in the Osage Indian tribe. It's pierced at the top, as you can see, and that's so that it can be worn on a ribbon. Well, years ago, I was able to find and locate the original dies for this medal. And I sent them to Daniel Carr at the Moonlight Mint outside of Denver, Colorado. And I said, Dan, well, first of all, I tried to sell the dies by consigning them through a stacks auction. They didn't sell. They sent them back to me in a box, and I let it sit there for about a decade. I mean, I wasn't going to do anything with it, so it just sat there. Well, when I opened it up, finally, a thin film of rust had formed over the surfaces of the die. And I mean, I couldn't see any of the design. It was, in my mind, ruined. And this, again, goes back to proper storage. The box was not airtight, and I'm not faulting Stacks. I should have opened up the box and taken the dies out immediately, but I did not, thinking that they were safe. Well, this is what happens. Somehow moisture got in there and it rusted the dies. Well, I sent the dies to Dan Carr and I said, can you do anything with these dies? And he was able to clean them up and did a fabulous job. I mean, I couldn't believe how well they turned out. And I had him strike a bunch of copies using the dies. So here's an example of the restrike. I don't know if you can really tell there from the picture, but there's rust pitting that you can see in the field there. And that's all over the front and all over the back as well. So it's very easy to tell a restrike from the original in that the restrikes are all rusted. So Dan Carr struck a number of different pieces, most of them in a white metal, but he also struck a couple in silver and then a couple in brass. And some of these have reeded edges, some are plain edges. And this one is one where this is one of the first strikes. This is like a test strike. And you can see that it's been hit with a hammer to make sure that it couldn't be used as used to confuse anybody in the market. So that's an interesting thing. This is just a metal. If you collect metals, they are they're coins, shaped like a coin, usually in much higher definition, but they have no monetary value. It does not say on them, 50 cents or $1 or $10. They have no monetary value. But because of the high relief and the larger size, the engraver is able to create these really beautiful metals, and they do them on a variety of different subjects. It could be a person metal, or it could be a building. I mean, the themes run from animals to food to ships to you name it. And there are so many of them that if you decide to stick with a particular theme, you'll be able to collect them literally for the rest of your life. There are a lot of people I know that collect Martin Luther Reformation medals. Some collect Indian peace medals. Some collect assay medals from the United States, inaugural medals. There's just the possibilities are literally endless. So, and they're also usually much less expensive than a coin would be. In other words, you could put together a meaningful collection that is really visually appealing and stunning for not much money, whereas it would be difficult to put together, let's say, a set of peace dollars in MS-65 or MS-66. And non-numismatists really like metals because they are artistic. These sculptors often do these really creative things, like they might have two pieces that join together in like a lightning bolt pattern, or it might have a weird hole through the middle of it. You look at it and go, that's really cool. Especially if you're a coin collector and you're used to the round standard items, you look at these things and you say, that's something I'd like to collect. So that's another thing that I like to collect. I also like political memorabilia. That's a whole different field. And there are even subsets of that. You can collect political ribbons, banners, buttons. There's so many different ways to collect that. So when you get involved in coin collecting in a big way, keep your eyes open for some of these other areas that might be of potential interest to you. You never know, you might get into one of these areas and say, man, I wish I'd known about this 10 years ago. I really like this, and this is where I'm going to focus my collecting. So always keep an open mind. And that's one of the advantages of going to a coin show. I think in the last video or two, I talked about how going to a coin show is literally like visiting hundreds of coin dealers in a single day. Well, when you do that, you're exposed to all sorts of different items. Let's say you're a collector of peace dollars and MS-65. You might go to a coin show, and while you're walking around, you might see a piece of paper money from your hometown, national currency that says on it San Diego, and you say, oh wow, there's actually money made in America that has the name of my hometown on it. And some towns might have several banks that have the name of the bank and the name of your city. That might be a whole new area of collecting for you that you've never even considered before. You might walk by and see a medal that is just really neat, a neat design, an odd metal. It could be one of those weird, freaky designs that I mentioned before. You just never know. So always keep an open mind. And one of the best ways to do that, to take advantage of that open mind, is go to a coin show and just see what's out there. You'd really be surprised at the various opportunities there are for someone to collect. Coming up, I think I mentioned in the last video, the Florida United Numismatist Show is coming up in January, early January in Orlando. It's at the Orange County Convention Center, as always. And I'm going to be at the show only on Thursday and Friday. That's January 5th through the 6th. So if you're at the show, you can page me over the intercom. That's probably the best way to get me. And I'd love to meet you if you're there, and we can talk coins. And if you're interested, I can show you around the floor and maybe open up your eyes to some of the different possibilities that are there. The fun show is one of the biggest in the country, and I think the advertisement said there's going to be over 1,000 coin dealers there. So that's like party time for coin dealers. I want to mention that I'm trying to do these podcasts or these live streams on Wednesday nights. Next Wednesday is going to be the 11th. I won't be able to do it on that day, but I will be back on the 18th no, I'm sorry. I won't be here on the 4th, but I will be back on the 11th and hopefully ever after that. So just keep that in mind. I will send out a notice that I will not be available on the 4th, but you should be able to join me back up on the 11th. Nobody stopped on board, so I think I'm going to cut this one short. Thank you for viewing the video. And again, please subscribe, like if you like it, and try to help me get these numbers back up. Again, I'm not sure what happened. It's inexplicable. I don't know what to say. I don't know. I don't know. The new year is coming upon us, and I just want to thank all of you for a wonderful 2022, and I hope all of you and your families have a wonderful, happy 2023. Everybody's talking about a recession coming up. I mean, a real recession. So be careful out there, and just try to do your best to get through it, and we'll be here to help you any way we can. Thank you very much. Good night.